Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome to another episode of Mentally Business Live. I am your host, Kamisha Brewer Dickerson, and today is episode number 89, and we are talking about how to recognize real burnout. Okay, real burnout. So, before I get into today's episode, I want to introduce myself. I am a licensed professional counselor practicing here in the state of Arkansas. I am a business coach for new therapists. I teach you guys how to set up, structure, and market your private practice without relying on directories or paid ads. I teach you how to do this using relationship based marketing as your most effective strategy. I am a professional speaker. I have spoken over 300 times, and I am an author of the book Thought Life Confessions. And if you don't have it yet, it is available on my website, cbrewerconsulting.com. So let's get into the content for today. I want you guys to focus on what the term burnout even means, but more importantly, what it means to you and recognizing how it can present itself in your life. And those are the things you need to be looking for. October, huge mental health awareness campaigns going on all year. World Mental Health Day was a few days ago. Just all the things related to mental health. But I specifically want to talk to the business owners, the entrepreneurs, the therapists, the pastors, the leaders, the nonprofit directors, the program directors, the CEOs, people who are in the business of people and who are in the business of serving others. We are at a higher risk level for burnout just because of the nature of the work that we do. And so, through our teaching today and our time together, I want you guys to start doing some really, really hard assessments and evaluations of your own life so you can start to recognize if you are experiencing some of these signs of burnout. And I'm an educator, right? So I am going to provide some psychoeducation today, just in terms of some possible things to be looking for. But I want to start by sharing my burnout story with you guys that happened a few years ago. I was actually operating outside of my purpose. I was in that transition between wanting, I had actually just left. I had actually just left my salaried teaching job as a preschool teacher at a behavioral facility for children. I had left that job to go back to waitressing like I did in college. I have a master's degree and I'm waitressing, and it wasn't enough money. So I picked up a second job working at Lowe's, the hardware store, as a cashier. And so I'm working, and I'm trying to learn the foundational components of building a business. So I'm working day shift at Lowe's, then I'm going to the restaurant to work 4 till close, evening and night shift at the restaurant, and I have no benefits, okay? I'm cash pay at the restaurant and tips. I think at the time it was like $2.63-ish per hour. So I'm heavily relying on tips. The money from Lowe's was consistent. I got a steady paycheck, but I worked 30 something hours, so I wasn't quite full time, right? So I didn't have those full time benefits. So under no circumstances could I afford to take off and still get paid. So on the days where I was tired, I went to work. The days where I was dehydrated, I went to work. On the days where I just mentally didn't need to be there because I needed a break, I went to work. And there was always an opportunity to pick up a shift at the restaurant. And because I'm like, oh, I want to build a business, I want to relocate, I need to save up my money. And not, okay, what does my body need? I didn't even recognize that I was in a critical state of burnout, like the level beyond extreme burnout. That's where I was at. And it was the scariest thing ever. So, what happened was my body started responding to the lack of sleep and to the stress and to the high pressure and to the constant standing on my feet all day long. I wasn't getting enough nutrients. I wasn't getting enough hydration. I was eating, but it wasn't, the best. It was like a Philly cheesesteak sandwich or like a chicken cheese something with cheese and peppers and french fries and honey mustard over everything, whole pizzas, ice cream, whatever. I was just eating whatever I could because I was working so much. And so one day my body decided, okay, Kamisha, since you're not disciplined enough to recognize that we are experiencing real burnout, we're just going to shut down. And so I ended up collapsing on the bathroom floor in Lowe's, very gross. They had to call my sisters. They were trying to get me in a wheelchair to get me to the doctor. And like it was so embarrassing more than anything. And even at that moment, I was still in denial about the burnout. Okay. I was completely in denial and embarrassed, but I had no choice but to go home and to lay down and to evaluate all of the decisions that had led up to that moment. Okay. And I had to take full responsibility and accountability for what I had done to my own body in this pursuit of a goal, in this pursuit of success, and the decisions I made without creating a fully thought out plan that was going to allow me to be able to sit down, to rest, to hydrate, to get what I need, to get my mental needs met, to get my emotional needs met, to get my spiritual needs met. I didn't have a plan for how to do all of that, and my body shut down for me. And I am grateful for that because that shutdown was what helps me to not ever put my body in that state again. And those of y'all that fast forward and you know how I run my business, I only work a few days a week. Fridays I am off, and I mean no phone calls, no emails kind of off. I am complete rest mode. I'm probably overly hydrated. I sleep 8 to 10 hours a night, but it was that scary burnout experience that created that kind of self-care plan for me. So, if you are experiencing any of these symptoms I'm about to give you, please be gracious, okay, to yourself. Don't panic. Don't freak out. Don't do anything erratic. But it is something for you to be mindful of, okay? So, some of the symptoms of burnout can look like number one, fatigue. Fatigue is probably the one that you will feel first, just because if you're working long hours, by the time you lay down, it feels like you have been in bed for 10 minutes and it's already time to get up for the next day, especially if you're working a high stress job and you have children and your children have after school activities and sports and meetings, you have church and you're heavily involved. I'm a pastor's kid, so I definitely understand that church life, back to back services, rehearsals, prayer meeting, Bible studies, convocations, conventions, conferences, like it is go, go, go. And you got sports and you've got school activities and you've got meetings, and especially those of us who are involved in community life and extracurricular activities, Greek organizations, academic or social organizations, like it can be very hectic. Okay. So fatigue is probably one of the ones you will feel first. The second one, loss of interest. So some of the activities that used to bring you joy and really used to set your soul on fire, you're completely uninterested and not really worried about being involved in those things. Number three, irritability. You may feel irritability at the same time as fatigue, and it's hard to tell, okay, am I irritable? Am I tired? Do I need more sleep? Like, what is actually going on? But all of these are signs of real burnout, okay? Number four, difficulty sleeping. So, we're talking insomnia or hypersomnia where you're sleeping too much and it's hard for you to get up. It's hard for you to let the bed go. Like some people, like their bed literally has a hold on them in the morning because they feel safe there. They feel comfortable there. There are no expectations. There's no pressure to perform or to do or to be. They can just be present in the bed, wrapped up like a burrito. That's where you thrive. Okay. But that's something to look for. Your eating habits. Are you overeating? Are you under eating? Are you eating food that doesn't fuel your body and it makes you feel like blah, which is really why you also don't have energy? Sometimes it's even a brain fog kind of thing based on what you're putting in your body. So, high sugar, high salt, lots of fat, lots of dye, and just all these additional additives and preservatives and big words that are on the ingredient labels that don't really need to be in food. Like those are some things you need to look at, and that's probably contributing to your burnout, especially if you're not disciplined enough to meal prep or either pay for meal prep to make sure that you and your family have high quality meals. Okay. Number six, if you're stressed out, you're really anxious, you're on 10, it is hard for you to calm down and decompress from the day. That is a sign of real burnout. Okay. And honestly, y'all, just for awareness purposes, right? This is for educational purposes and informational purposes only. But sometimes living in that state of just constant stress constant anxiety, not being able to calm down because you're always on edge, that is traumatic and it has negative effects on the brain, on the body, and to your nervous system. And it causes a lot of like disease later in life. And sometimes you don't even notice it and it's hard to recognize. So, what I'm teaching you is not just, oh, you need to change your daily habits. You need to change these daily habits because your quality of life in the next few years to come will be determined by your daily decisions. That's how important this conversation is. And number seven, which is a huge one and probably one of the biggest like red flags that a lot of people don't recognize is the loss of creativity. Okay, so if you are a naturally creative person where you can get online, create a graphic for Canva, you write or you design, you paint, you sing, or you're a poet, like you are a creative, you can build anything, you can visualize it, and then you can go do it. When that thing, your creativity level starts to drop, that could be an indicator that you are experiencing real burnout. Okay. So, and here's something else. Okay. These are also signs and symptoms of depression. Okay. So you may be burnt out and you also may be experiencing depression. And at that point, you're going to need to seek out some mental health treatment to get those things managed so that they don't continue to create additional problems for you and your family. Okay. So here's the bottom line, you have to recognize what real burnout looks for you. We're having this conversation today just to bring awareness because this is my lane, teaching new and emerging leaders how to mentally do business. But I'm teaching you this by how to recognize what is happening within you and what's going on in your heart and in your spirit and in your emotions. But you have to recognize it for yourself. It's not enough for me to point it out. I'm providing education, but you have to implement and decide, okay, who do I need to get connected to? So we need to create a plan. Okay. If you have these symptoms, these signs of real burnout, and it could be burnout, could be depression, you need to create a plan, like standard operating procedures for what you're going to do with your life. Who do you need to contact? What resources do you have in place? Do you and your husband or spouse, wife, partner, whoever, do you guys need to take a vacation without your children? Or do you guys need to have a family vacation with everybody to get away, go to the zoo, the beach, the pumpkin patch, a cruise, whatever? Do you guys need that away time? Okay. That's something for you to consider, but you need a plan, a personal plan for how you are going to deal with real burnout. You cannot work through it. It does not go away just because you have a goal. You may not even be able to get to your goal if your body collapses and shuts down like mine did, which is what I started teaching you guys about in the beginning of this episode. If that happens, you're not going to reach the goals anyway. So you have to honor your body and recognize what real burnout looks like. And honestly, from a spiritual standpoint, you will be able to get so much more clarity when you work through the burnout. And so sometimes God allows us to experience burnout and what it means so that we can sit down. And sometimes that's how God uses burnout to get our attention. Okay. And that may need to be an entire episode within and of itself. And we'll deal with that later. Okay. But recognize real burnout for you. Consider everything that I've taught you today. Figure out if you are experiencing these symptoms, if it's burnout, if it's depression, if it's both, if it's one or the other. There are mental health resources available in your city. All you have to do is go to Google. You can go to Psychology Today. You can go to therapyforblackgirls.com. You can go to therapyforblackmen.com, Therapy Den. There are all kinds of resources for you to be able to find a mental health provider in your area so you can deal with burnout. Because at the root of burnout, we're talking people pleasing, we're talking poor boundaries, we're talking inability to communicate needs and feelings. There's a whole lot of stuff that happens when people are experiencing burnout. It is not just burnout and you overcommitting your time. Okay. So I hope you guys have found value in this episode. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Make sure you share this episode with someone who needs it, whoever that may be, because you never know who's actually experiencing burnout, especially if they are a high achieving professional who carry stress well. They're probably way more burned out than what they even recognize themselves. So make sure you visit the website, cbrewerconsulting.com, check out some resources, and I will see you guys in the next episode.